I always thought my movie would be a comedy, not quite the tragedy that it's become.
How's it going, everyone? This is Mark from the Uncaped Crusaders Review and the Uncaped Crusaders and Movie Swap. I'm here by myself, not with Ian, because he's over on the other side of the store doing, I don't know. I try not to bother him. Sometimes he gets kind of cranky late at night. But anyway, a new movie has come out. I know there's been a handful of direct-to-video movies that have come out since this quarantine started, but the first one that I have cared about seeing came out today, and SCOOB, exclamation point, has come out with kind of a new imagination, a new imaginative, new way of telling the Scooby-Doo story. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Ultimately, they did a good job of keeping true to what we know of Scooby-Doo to be. I've actually been rewatching a bunch of old Scooby-Doo recently, so I'm very familiar with just the show and the characters and everything going into this. And I thought they did a good job of bringing each of them to life. Few little changes. They made Fred much more of an kind of idiot character, which we've seen them do in different recent variations. So that's kind of not my favorite thing, but they still did a pretty good job with it. Really good job with Scooby and Shaggy, really, really well done. Voice acting from Will Forte being Shaggy, really enjoyed it. And of course, the great Frank Welker, always amazing as Scooby-Doo. But yeah, they kept with the good source material. It felt like a pretty good Scooby-Doo story at the beginning. The first half is pretty good. We get introduced to them as kids. Kind of starts off a little normal and then really blows up by about midway through or so. It kind of turns into, I don't know, kind of a typical now blockbuster, and they do a lot with it. A lot of set pieces, a lot of explosions, shooting, very Avengers style, many parts of it, and that not as big of a fan of. I thought that took away from the actual Scooby-Doo gang element of it, which is usually more grounded. It's taken kind of big, otherworldly, supernatural seeming things and then turning out to be usually a somewhat normal thing. We saw a little bit of that at the beginning, but ultimately that's not what this movie is. It's much more grand scale, very fast moving, very much for today's kids who attention span might not be what it used to be. So that's definitely, they throw a lot of stuff at you, So the stories are all right. I like some of the stuff that's introduced with Blue Falcon and with Dynamite. That's a good dynamic. We can see a lot of Hanna-Barbera Easter eggs and characters, a lot of characters used, and a lot of little Easter eggs that you'll see that you got to really pay attention to get. Some Laugh Olympic, Space Ghost, some of that stuff, which I really did enjoy, being a big fan of early Hanna-Barbera growing up. Yeah, voice cast, pretty good. Talked about Will Forte doing Shaggy and Frank Welker Scooby, which are really good. Zac Efron as Fred is actually really good. I didn't even think of Zac Efron for a lot of the movie, so I thought I did a really good job there. Ken Jeong as Dynamite is fun. He's kind of just being Ken Jeong, which I enjoy. I liked Mark Wahlberg as Blue Falcon. That's another one where I didn't quite hear him for a lot of the movie. It would come out, and you clearly recognize him for many parts, but there were other parts when you weren't really thinking about listening to Mark Wahlberg talk, so I like that as well. And there's several other really good cast members. The big flaw for the movie was a lot of the jokes. It is pretty funny, but there's a lot of topical humor, of not pop culture references per se, but now, like jokes that are big now, which a lot of kids movies do that, a lot of movies like that, and it's at the point where a lot of this stuff is already starting to feel dated, and it just came out, because of course they made the movie a year ago, and they do a lot of that. There's a lot of references that don't land at all. So I'm not a big fan of that. That was probably the biggest flaw with the movie. There's pretty good heart, really good relationship between Scooby and Shaggy. That's the main heartbeat, for lack of a better term, that keeps the whole story moving, and some very touching moments there in several parts. There in the climax in the middle, And of course, then at the end, there's several really good character moments with those two. I'm disappointed we didn't see the whole gang together for most of the movie. A little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end, but a lot of the middle, they're separate. You got Scooby and Shaggy doing their thing, and you have Velma, Fred, and Daphne doing their thing. Kind of felt like a sequel. The movie didn't really establish the gang. It's really going into, we already know them because we're familiar with Scooby-Doo, so we don't really need that. We can just immediately split them up. I mean, we see them get together, you know, as kids at the beginning, and then kind of immediately split them up pretty soon after the actual movie starts. So that was a little disappointing. I would have liked to see the whole gang together a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more of a traditional Scooby-Doo mystery would have been better for me as compared to this grand scale thing that they do, which is kind of the way every animation movie is done now. But you know, they're trying to adapt to a modern audience. I got a lot of Peanuts movie vibe from 2015 when they did the Peanuts, kind of the same CGI animation, and modernizing it all for a new audience, although I thought they did a much better job. I think that movie is better than this one, for sure. But this one wasn't bad. Solid 3-star movie. Definitely worth watching. Maybe not worth rewatching, but especially if you have kids, it'll definitely be a good one that you'll be able to get through without being miserable, of course, watching a kids movie. And for people that are big fans of Scooby-Doo like myself and grew up with it, there's enough references, and they do a really good job with the characters that you don't feel alienated from Scooby-Doo. So you still do feel like you're watching. All been and updated, but definitely still a version of Scooby-Doo. All right, that does it for this review of Scoob. Don't forget, Movie Swap will be coming out on Wednesday with me and Ian. We will be talking Munich and 12 Angry Men. So the two movies we gave each other to watch. And that is what we are going to talk about in Movie Swap. Also check out the Uncaped Crusaders Review Podcast. Comes out every Friday. We talk about Batman. We've already covered every Batman movie, and we're going through the 66 Adam West Show and the Batman animated series alternating weeks. So check that out. All podcast platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Uncaped Review. Can give you all the updates there. And stay tuned for more movie reviews. Hopefully, we got some more stuff coming out. I know it's a tough time. Movie theaters closed, all that stuff. Hopefully, we'll get back to normal with movies sometime soon. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Talk to you next time.
The girl